Who are you going to hire that's going to fix your offense?
I agree. It was.
Now,
Thank you. It was the quick, easy thing to do.
uh-huh,
Exactly like Chris Grier.
uh-huh. Quick,
No
easy,
mess,
safe.
no mess, no fuss.
Spending $4 million is a mess.
How much did they spend on Chris Grier?
Uh,
I hope they spent more than $4 million.
Hopefully, yeah. No, yeah. I guess $4 million isn't bad for the coach you wanted. When you could have just had him if Rick had decided that, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. But props to him. Walking away.
Leaving $20 million on the table. Now that's putting your
Hey,
beliefs where your pocketbook is, huh?
that's true. I mean,
No one should have a bad word to say about him. Now, I think it's good news that if it wasn't right anymore, he walked away.
yeah.
Have a good time in Buffalo?
Actually, I did. Weird. The weather wasn't horrible. And here's what, and we actually went to Niagara Falls. So I saw that for the first time. Welcome to the final X's and Omar of 2018. It might be 2019, but we've still got some house cleaning to do, Dave. House cleaning from last season featured the Miami Dolphins owner Steve Ross on Monday deciding that after Miami's embarrassing 42-17 loss to the Buffalo Bills, that he was going to make changes to the top of his organization. The game was an embarrassment, and then so was the conclusion. Players actually acknowledged that, hey, we're not exactly on board with Adam Gase returning for his final for next season.
How many players would you say, Omar? What percent are we talking?
I would say maybe about 40%.
Yeah, see, this has become a media war now where Adam Gase's media arm is saying that's not true. And you heard that.
I spoke, there were some exceptions.
Of course, it's a big locker room. A lot of grown men.
It's a big locker room, but the consensus was, and I got this feel, that if Adam Gase was brought back here this next upcoming season, might be a repeat of the 2015 Joe Philbin era.
I know from the way he acted the last few weeks, a lot of excuse making, a lot of putting the burden on other people and not himself, that a lot of people were down on him in the organization and now the locker room too.
So what Steve Ross did is he removed Gase, who he hired. He reassigned Mike Tannehill, removing him out of the vice president of football operations role and putting him on another side of his business. And he also elevated Chris Grier, who putting the man who'd been part of this organization for 20 years in charge of all football decisions and tasks and saying, find our next new coach. Dave, what are the pros and cons of Ross's decision?
Wow, let's get right into it. Happy New Year, Omar.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dolphin fans.
Welcome to another episode of As the Dolphins Swirl Turns.
It's the same year. It's the same year, right? Every different people, different. Look, the positive to what Ross did is I love the structure. None of this, what's the corporate flow chart? It all flows through one person now. Okay, one person is answered to Ross. He makes the hires, he makes the decisions, final say. So none of this, well, what did the coach think and what did the GM think and what did the vice president of football operations think? None of that nonsense anymore. So I love that. Now, is Chris Grier the right guy? We got the right structure, you got the right plan. I think they got the right timeline too, because they weren't going to win next year with all the holes they have. Do they have the right guy in Chris Grier? We'll find out. And you hope Ross did his homework that, okay, Chris really wanted to do this all along, and they always want to do something else for 20 years.
Listen, for 20 years, he's had to be on board with some of the picks, the good and the bad. He is part of it. And that's the one thing I appreciate about Chris Grier, is I've seen him throughout the different levels of the organization, and he's always remained one consistent guy. Humbled, quiet, not exactly comfortable with being in the spotlight, not exactly comfortable with pulling the trigger either.
Maybe smart. Not uncomfortable, just smart to stay out of the line of fire, right?
Hey, the approach has gotten him this high. He got what everybody always wanted, which was final power and say, and the authority to not have to answer to anybody. And while I liked Steve Ross's old structure, and I did, because it allowed me to know who was responsible for what.
Whoa, who was responsible for not drafting Josh Allen, for instance?
That was Adam Gase.
Oh, see, I heard
he was committed to his quarterback.
Oh, it came out. Gase loved Josh Allen, and it was Chris Grier.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just telling you, that's the problem.
I don't want Josh Allen either.
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm using that as an example.
You're right. Now there is one person to blame. One person to get credit, yeah. Well, we know which way that rolls in Dolphins land. But here's what I liked about this situation. I knew within the last 3 years the guy who had the least say was Chris Grier. The least power, least influence was Chris Grier. You talk to agents, Mike Tannehill was doing the deal. You talk to players, Adam Gase was pulling the strings. What was Chris Grier doing?
Surviving. That's what he was doing, as he has for 2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades.
So either this was an inspired choice by Steve Ross, as he saw, look, here's the bright mind in our franchise. My question would be, why didn't you hire him the last time or the time before? And
he did elevate him.
He elevated, well, Tannenbaum elevated him, right? But, okay. Yeah, okay. Look, he has his chance, okay? He has the opportunity of his career, and now we'll see what happens. I'm not down on him. I'm just, look, if I was Ross, what I would have done is opened it up and made a national search. This was the easy way out in my mind, and the quick way.
This is the only GM. Two things that should be pointed out. Chris Grier is the only African-American GM once Ozzie Newsome retires, once the Ravens are done. And that is a retirement. Ozzie is done. He's tired. And two, there are no other GM openings. There are no GM openings.
Which tells you coaches get fired and GMs don't, right? Now, and couple what you just said about Chris Grier being the only Afro-American GM. To the University of Miami, Manny Diaz, Cuban-American, coming in as a coach. Okay, there might not be diversity in the rest of the country, but here in South Florida,
there's some diversity. Let's start with our first question, which comes from James. Did the team give up on Gase and Tannehill?
No, it was time. Adam Gase, and I've written this, I wrote it before he was fired, weeks before, going back to last summer when undisciplined team, and now you had at the end of the year, he's making all sorts of excuses. I've never heard a coach make more excuses. And you talk about wanting to build a winning culture and all that, as he did last summer. The head coach sets the culture, and the culture by the end of the season was one of a coach making excuses for a bad record on the road, for why they were losing, injuries. I mean, you can go on down the line right till the last game, he's making excuses for himself.
I realized after that Buffalo game, not only had the team had enough of Adam Gase, they've had enough of Ryan Tannehill. And this has been brewing for quite a while.
7 years.
Yeah, a lot of players have left this organization because they said, we ain't going nowhere with him. And they would rather play with a young rookie quarterback, play with the Josh Allens and Josh Rosens, and deal with what the upside is, as opposed to knowing you're perennially 8-8 forever.
When they feel good going into this offseason with Josh Allen? Or Lamar Jackson?
No, maybe Lamar Jackson, but I'm not a fan of Josh Allen. Probably never will be a fan of Josh Allen. JD Knowles wants to know, why am I still a Dolphins fan, Dave Hyde? And what can I do to stop it?
Do you like cooking? Fishing? There's a lot of hobbies out there on Sundays. Don't watch the Dolphins. Look, if you don't want to, they've given you ample reason to turn them off for the last 20 years. We get paid for this, Omar.
I have a best friend, and we were college roommates together. And it was the Jacksonville loss, Dan Marino's final game, that gut-wrenching loss to Jay Fiedler, who would eventually become Miami's quarterback. And he decided to divorce the Dolphins at that point. He's like, I am done. We were 21.
He got out at a good time.
And he couldn't deal with the heartache anymore. Now, he doesn't have an NFL team, but that's the downside of it. If you divorce the Dolphins and they're in your backyard and they're listening to you have to listen to sports talk radio, and you can't survive it if you're from here. Now, the guys who are displaced, I think they are more diehard than the people that are here because they care, they don't hear it all the time, and they have to suffer through it.
The ones who are alive as a Dolphin right now are the diehards. Because if not, you
don't have a young generation of kids.
Yeah. No.
You got to.
They're Heat fans because they win winning.
You know what? You know what I find interesting about the Lamar Jackson. I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson fan, as we talked. But what I find interesting about the Lamar Jackson situation in Baltimore, he's ignited a whole new generation of fans.
And he is a dynamic talent. Now, is he a finished product? No. And will he have a long career if they run him as much as he did? No.
That's my problem.
You got to develop. He's got to develop. But you see why people rally to him and why when John Harbaugh had to make a decision between him and Flacco, he knew he would lose the locker room if he picked Flacco because they saw what was going on the field, and that guy could make them win.
And that's part of the reason I think Adam Gase lost the locker room. He chose Tannehill over everybody.
Absolutely. All right, Omar, does Ross make another run at Jim Harbaugh?
That's more of a fitting question for you because you've been around during the Harbaugh batting of the eye. But I would say no from this standpoint. People who don't know Steve Ross don't understand. He's got 2 football franchises. There's the Miami Dolphins, which he owns, and then there's the University of Michigan, where he's a big booster and goes to every Saturday game. So he's not going to take from one franchise and put him on the other franchise, especially when you know that Steve Ross' fight song is the University of Michigan. His phone is the University of Michigan fight song. That's his ringer. So you know where his loyalties are. Also, I think Jim Harbaugh needs to show that he can win at Michigan before he can become this hot NFL coach that you give all power to.
I'm looking for my text from Steve Ross where he said, no, I will not be hiring Jim Harbaugh, and you can quote me on that. So that was last week. So that ain't going to happen. Now, John Harbaugh, look, when you hired Chris Grier, you said, I'm not hiring John Harbaugh. I'm not hiring someone who wants corporate power. All right, you've moved on from that. That's
the thirst of corporate power.
That's a non-decision now. You're going to get either a retread veteran head coach or a rookie head coach, because anybody who is a big name
wants power,
wants say, and Chris Grier has all say here now. All right, Omar, Luke Fader has an important question. Who can Steve Ross trust for advice?
Well, if you look at it, just look at the people around him. Tom Garfinkel, the CFO, CEO, I can't remember. I'm not big on those titles, but he's the head honcho on the business side of the organization. And if you look at what Tom Garfinkel's done, he's done a pretty damn good job.
That's the winning side of the organization.
They win in everything. All they do is win, no matter what. On the business side. Now, unfortunately, they haven't been able to get it right on the football side. And that's the tough thing. But when you have an executive that can sell out a team that's perennially 8-8.
So are you making the case to have Garfinkel come over to the football side and help out and make hires? And
I don't know why he wouldn't have say. I don't know why he wouldn't have power.
Well, he wouldn't because he doesn't have football background.
Neither did Mike Tannenbaum. It never stopped him from rising up the Jets, never stopped him from moving up the organization. And then Matt Higgins, who runs Ross's Enterprises.
He lost power this year.
You think so?
Absolutely. He lost some advice. Now, he works with Ross day to day.
He makes Ross a lot of money.
But he also was pushing for a lot of these things of the last few years that failed.
That's true.
And when things fail, you lose influence.
What about Danny, man?
Danny's right there. We saw him in the suite, right?
Yeah.
And over remember when a few years ago, he didn't have a place in the organization. Now, during games, he's sitting right beside Ross. He has more say in the organization. All right, so Chris Grier is the man, Omar. He's been put in charge of leading South Florida's NFL franchise out of this long, long, long walk through the wilderness. Ross spoke
2 decades?
Ross spoke about being stuck between 6-10 and 10-6 for this decade as the franchise's owner. And I'll tell you, they're the only team in the NFL for the last 11 years to have at least 6 wins and no more than 10 wins. They're the definition of mediocrity. Okay, and he's entrusted Grier with Miami getting off the mediocrity merry-go-round. Your term. Was this a wise move considering Grier's been part of the franchise's decision for the nearly 2 decades?
Here's what I like about this decision. It empowers the little guy. It empowers the guy who's never battling for power, never lobbying, never talking in your ear. You don't want to salute ambition? Greed. In this dynamic that we've had, the latest trifecta, the guy with the quietest voice, the guy who probably would just say what his opinion was and then back down and let everybody else fight, has been Chris Grier. And what it does is it empowers this decision to me empowers those people who do things the right way, but who are the quiet guys in the room. But the problem is, it's got to win now. It's got to succeed.
He's not the quiet guy in the room anymore.
No.
All right?
He is the guy.
And he can't put it off to, okay, well, you guys decided this. It's his decision now. And it's either a great decision. Look, Ross has been in the room the last several years.
He knows who said what.
Right.
Which is what I love about the situation.
But then again, he knew it last time, too. And the time before that, too. So let's hope he gets it right.
Another thing I like about Chris Grier is that he's from a family that has had success in this league in front office, in not only just the NFL, but in the NHL. His brother is an executive
He's a scout.
He's a scout with a hockey team. His father, Bobby Grier, worked his way up the Patriots organizations, worked his way up and was a huge evaluator of talent for the Houston Texans organization. Partly credited that one individual with helping draft Tom Brady and helping find J.J. Watt. Now, of course, everybody's going to take credit for the successes that they have. which is, hey, that's what they do.
You know what I like about him? He was a journalism major. Now there's somebody with a journalism degree who has a success story.
And if I had known that, I would assume he would know how to play the game a little bit better.
Maybe he does.
Because Adam Gase wasn't a journalism major, and he damn sure knows how to play the game.
All right, Omar, Kane's gang wants to know, what's your assessment of the wide receiver unit? Not having a receiver produce more than 600 yards of receptions in a season is disappointing. Do we need more physical receivers?
I think a lot of that, it gets watered down a little bit because Albert Wilson wasn't there for most of the season. Jakeem Grant missed half the season. Those were two top playmakers.
Wait. Jakeem Grant, I love Jakeem Grant.
No. I said they're playmakers,
okay,
but
right.
they are not pieces I want to build my team around.
Okay.
And so, do they need a big physical receiver? Hell yes. Devontae Parker completely disparate on the seat at the end of the season. Checked out. I can understand why he checked out.
You know what? In retrospect, his confidence was stolen. His soul ripped out of him on the training camp field by Xavier Howard.
It was.
And the coaches should have moved him. They should have seen this. This is a fragile guy. Get him where he could in success.
Xavier Howard destroyed him. And, iron sharpens iron. That was what they were saying. But I saw the mental toll that it took on him. And you got to the point where you looked at Devontae, and he admitted to me, I lost my confidence. Who admits that, Dave?
Not in the pros.
Yeah.
That's like saying I'm not a man anymore.
Yeah, and you got things to reveal. but he admitted it, and I respected him for his honesty. The problem is the coach couldn't build it back up because probably too much damage had been done. And that's a situation with a lot of the players. Too much damage had been done.
See, it's a mystery to me. He went from over 50 catches in years 2 and 3 and 5 touchdowns. Not great, but productive. To he has a good game against Houston, and he's
never
nothing.
had chemistry, Ryan Tannehill.
Right.
From day one. I watched him practice
Either
with...
did Mike Wallace. You can go down the list. There was a lot of...
Kenny still says chemistry with Ryan
Kenny still
Tannehill,
is,
except he couldn't evolve into a role of really a possession receiver. But that's another subject. But do the Dolphins need better receivers? Absolutely. Ron has an important question for us, Dave. Why can't the front office fix the issues with the offensive line and stopping the run? This has been going on for years now, and it has driven me absolutely insane. Sorry, I'm channeling Ron. Why should we have faith that they'll fix it now with this new staff?
You shouldn't have faith. I mean, let's face it, you shouldn't have faith. Now, if I'm the GM right now, which I am in the offseason, I pretend. We all pretend.
I always like your strategy, Dave.
There's two things you got to do. One is you got to decide your plan at quarterback, and the other, you got to draft or sign or finagle from the Canadian League 8 linemen, maybe on both sides of the ball. Both lines need to be rebuilt. You need to do whatever you can to get physical players on both sides of the line.
This is why I like Chris Grier. He's part of the Bill Parcells tree. He's from the Bill Parcells philosophy. And I have a feeling that we'll be moving back to a 3-4 scheme. I have a feeling that they will build the pieces to get more 3-technique defensive linemen, add a nose tackle, probably move to a 4 linebacker set. Charles Harris, he's only going to be good, if he's ever going to be good, as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think this is time. And as part of the Bill Parcells tree, you know the philosophy, bigger is better.
Well, again, since we're going over Charles Harris, you can go over these drafts, and that's the question with Chris Grier, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's the question. Where was he during these drafts? Was he only in the room on the good picks and out of the room on the bad picks?
No. He was all. They all stacked the board up together. Now, how they said Charles Harris would be a fit for our scheme, and we're just going to keep adding pass rushers to
Devontae Parker, Jordan Phillips. I mean, you can go down the list.
Oh, we know Jordan
Cordea
Phillips.
Tankersley. Yeah, Mike Tannenbaum had a look, and that's not to. Let's be honest. Whoever runs the show should have say at the first and second round picks. The scouting department was upset a couple times, but that's across the league, right? That's going to go on. So they were bad picks.
They were
my
bad
larger
picks.
point. All right, Omar. Luke Fader has another question. He's your favorite guy to give questions, isn't he?
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
Which pieces of the roster are worth a continued investment?
let's be honest about this team. They're rebuilding. There's no other way to put it. The owner said, hey, we might have to be bad for 2 or 3 years. You definitely need to be bad for 1 year, 2019, considering what's on the pipeline quarterback.
Unless you move up this year for the Ohio State quarterback.
Why wouldn't you draft 2? Play the rookie, draft another one. If you don't fix that problem.
Nobody ever does that, though.
Listen.
I'm not disagreeing, but nobody does that.
Maybe it's time. Here's what I like, the 2 players that you have to use as building blocks. Xavier Howard, top 5 cornerback in the league. You put him an offer right now on the table, top 5 salary. And you say, Xavier, we're not going to force you to play through your 4th year. We're going to take care of you and allow you to be the cornerstone of our franchise. If you continue this cycle of pissing off another player, what message is it going to send to everybody else in the locker room? Get the hell out of here. And I'm being honest with you because I talked to him. People don't want to be part of this organization because they don't take care of the people in this organization.
Well, they sure did a couple years ago. They took care of a lot of people.
Ryan Tannehill,
Rashad Jones, Kiko Alonso. You can go down the list of names they gave nice contracts to.
Yeah,
Andre Branch.
Danny Steele.
So they did take care of people. Now, here's the issue, Omar, and this is not going to be popular. This is going to be a very unpopular offseason, I think.
Oh.
And it's going to start with this guy.
Xavier
Howard.
Woo!
Best player on your roster.
Can you trade him for an asset?
You have to trade him. You are going to have to trade him because, as you said, it's a 2-3 year at best rebuilding job. Why have a beautiful hood ornament and win 5 games? You're going to have to go trade him. And here comes the crowd through. Where's our security here, Omar? Okay, but you got to. No, my point is you got to collect chips. And you're going to have to collect chips to get a quarterback.
And
there's your best
chip.
chip.
Trade your best player?
Absolutely.
But you have to have 5 things to win in the NFL.
You're right, and you're not going to win for 3 years. So you're going to keep a guy around for 3 years, at one of the best at his position, at probably the highest price.
Hold on. Nobody says that you're not going to win in 3 years. In 2018, it was a rebuild year, and they won 10 games and made it to the playoffs.
When you keep
2016,
when you keep the quarterback, it's not a rebuild year.
When you keep the quarterback.
When you keep the quarterback, you're not rebuilding, okay? And they kept the quarterback through all this stuff. This is a rebuild. They're going to get rid of Tannehill. They're going to have to draft a quarterback.
2008, they didn't get rid of the quarterback. They added a new one. But
Chad Pennington.
Yeah, okay. You could go the stopgap route if you want to. You could go get a Nick Foles, a Tyrod Taylor, a Teddy Bridgewater, and carry them over as a stopgap.
When they say we're not going to win for 2 or 3 years, you don't go out and do that. That makes no sense.
You go total purge.
That's the idea here.
All right. If you think
so, I'm saying you're going to. If I'm GM, I'm gritting my teeth, and I'm trading my best asset because for the next 2 or 3 years, how is he going to help you? For at least a number 1 draft pick.
And and with that number 1 draft pick, I'll get a young cornerback that I don't know if he can play?
No, a young quarterback. You're going to have to collect chips to possibly trade up.
I see
Look what Philadelphia did.
I see what you're going
That's what you got to do.
You're throwing in your best player to go move up to get a quarterback.
I am. And you have to do it.
You're putting Xavier Howard on the table for anybody who wants it to go get a quarterback.
Absolutely.
What about Laramie Tunsil? You putting him on the table too?
No, because I need him to help my quarterback.
Oh, okay. So it's always about the quarterback.
Well, we know that for the last 20 years.
All right, I can see your point. I can see your strategy.
That's my idea, anyways.
Move up
we'll
the
see
board,
what happens.
Give away your best player. Okay.
All right, Omar. Armando asks, "What's your evaluation?" Am I on the right of the?
Okay.
I'm moving ahead. Wrong script. That guy walking through got me all flustered.
We will get back on course, just like the Miami Dolphins. Now comes the fun part. The shopping for a new coach, Dave Hyde. The Dolphins have reached out to 6 candidates about joining their organization, and Miami special teams coach Darren Rizzi, who served as the assistant head coach for a number of years under Adam Gase, he's in the mix as well. Before we get into some of the top candidates and retreads, what are your thoughts on Rizzi getting the top spot?
I love Darren Rizzi. Now,
what isn't there to love about Darren Rizzi, other than the fact he's been part of this organization since 2009?
Well, and he survived how many coaches and regime changes because everybody recognizes his talent.
Absolutely.
Now, is he ready to be a head coach? To answer that, you got to sit in the room and talk to him. hear his view.
Or you got to watch him lead the room, because he does lead the room on a regular basis, which I think Chris Grier has had the opportunity to watch him
Here's
lead
the
room.
plus. His units are the one very good
Consistent.
quality consistently. Now, the non-plus is he loses his mind on the sideline sometimes. And do you want your head coach? Now, he changes the head coach. But the large... Would he?
He's an emotional guy. I'm not
There's
sure.
game day riz, as they say. Okay, so the only way to answer that is you got to go through the interview with them. And let's face it, you're going to bring in somebody, either a real veteran retread who's looking for a job and is hoping and crossing fingers that you're going to win in a couple years, or a guy with no experience who wants a head coaching job and is going to buy the idea of building a team.
Here's my question to you, because the Dolphins have reached out to a number of candidates that other teams are also interested in. Patriots defensive coordinator Brian Flores, Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, Bears defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, Steelers offensive line coach and former Tennessee Titans Mike Munchak, and then Cowboys secondary coach Chris Richards. Now, here's my question to you. All of these candidates have 2 or 3 other teams of the 8 that are looking for head coaches. They're interviewing for them. What would make you pick the Dolphins over any of those?
A lot of
other
money.
teams?
The worst job out there right now, and I put a blog up on this on sunsentinel.com to cross-advertise here, is the Dolphins' job. You're going through a rebuild.
Worse than Arizona?
Arizona, you have a quarterback. You have the top
Do
pick.
I like the quarterback, though?
Okay, you have the top pick in the draft if you don't like the quarterback, and you have some pieces.
Right.
Okay, what do you have with
Worse than Green Bay? That's a lot.
Come on.
That's a lot of pressure for Aaron Rodgers on the end of his career, man. That's a lot of
You
pressure.
are getting perhaps the number 1 quarterback in the league in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So you have a good offseason. You're an instant contender.
Worse than Tampa Bay. Come on. I got you with Tampa Bay.
No, Tampa Bay, you got a very good receiving core. You got what is
Deshaun Jackson was out.
What is Jameis Winston?
Oh, my God.
Okay? But you have a good defensive line. There are you pockets to build there. What are you building with the Dolphins? And you have no say in anything.
Worse than the Jets. Come on, Dave. Worse than the Jets.
$100 million to spend this offseason. 3rd pick overall. And,
Hey, Dolphins can get $70 million.
And what do you think of Sam
Dolphins
Darnold?
can get $70 million.
What do
You know what I say? You know what I say?
What do you think of Sam Darnold?
I like him. I like
Okay,
him.
well, then you like the Jets job.
Okay. Here's what I can sell you about South Florida. 1, I'd estimate that 40% of the NFL lives down here and trains down here.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, because
they party down here.
Yes, but they do live down here because of 1, tax-free state, Dave. That's important when you're in the 40% tax bracket.
We know that. We know that.
Oh, I don't know that. You know. Also, I told you the NFL lives down here. They do enjoy the lifestyle. They do enjoy the weather. Players don't like to move their families and displace them during the season. So I think, and the biggest benefit, who's going to write the biggest check to the next head coach? Who always gets an entry into the room because he's the big check writer?
I agree. That's the reason.
That's Steve Ross.
That's why you come down here.
Yes.
You're getting an opportunity to coach, and look. Adam Gase got 5 years, $27.5 million. Not break the bank. You're not going to break the bank with a first-time head coach. Okay, so why would you take the job? Because there's only 32 out there, and this is one of them. It's not a good job though right now.
You're hurting my feelings, Dave.
I
You're
know.
hurting my
I'm
feelings.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So, Dave, let me ask you this question. The Dolphins have had 2 straight rookie coaches, 2 straight offensive coaches that were on the offensive side of the ball. Is it time for a different approach?
You know what they need, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, they need a leader. They need someone who will control the room, send a message, talk as the voice of the franchise without making excuses.
Adam Gase did that. Okay, he added on the excuses at the end. But after a while, if they start tuning that voice out, or that voice doesn't prepare them to win games, which is what the biggest complaint was about Adam Gase, which shocked me, because you won a lot of close games, but on the road you played horribly.
They met teams at the wrong time, Omar. Minnesota just fired their offensive coordinator. Nobody wins in Foxborough. We know that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Listen.
Get that losing attitude out of here.
Well, you want to be losing for the next couple of years.
Well, but losing with an idea. Losing with an idea.
Losing for the goal of getting to it.
There's going to be pain. There is going to be suffering.
Armando asks, what's your evaluation of the 2018 rookie class? I'm glad you got this question, then I did not. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, look, Minkah Fitzpatrick, great player, and that's where the game's going. I mean, look. Here. When
you want to trade Xavier Howard away for an early first-round pick?
He's on a rookie contract. He'll be here in 3 years.
So you just want cheap players, cheap talented players.
Here's what you have to decide: how are we going to get from here across the big canyon to there, and who can go with us? Who can be there on the other side? Your number one. What's your number one need?
My number one need is quarterback.
Quarterback. You got to decide, how can we get a quarterback?
Okay.
The only way to get a quarterback, you got to expend a resource to get. Look at Buffalo. They had 2 number 1 picks,
What's
two number 2 picks.
What's
two
the
number
team
3
that you're
picks?
trying to trade with wants Minkah Fitzpatrick?
Ooh, then I gotta think about that one for a while.
Oh, you're willing to give up your best player, but you want
well, let's
it's
say
the contract.
It's the best player, and you're going to have to get a big contract for him.
Okay.
Okay. There's a difference.
The question was about the rookie class.
It's not great, but you know it's incomplete at the same time. It's incomplete.
I'm sorry, a lot of wasted picks there. Lot of wasted picks there. Minkah Fitzpatrick, excellent pick.
Well, excellent if Josh Allen isn't good.
I don't like Josh Allen. I'm good.
But you're not the arbiter of you didn't like Nick Foles either.
I didn't. I did not like Nick Foles.
Sometimes we're wrong. Believe it or not. Sometimes we're wrong.
Mike Gesicki. I'm sorry I didn't like that pick from the minute it was done. I'm probably never going to like that
Big
pick.
offseason for Mike Gesicki. He needs to hit the weight room and think about it's going to take to be an NFL player.
It's not the weight room. You either like the physical part of football or you don't like the physical part of football. And he doesn't like the physical part of football.
Big offseason for him.
Okay. You wasted another pick, and this is one thing. Chris Grier came out and said, Mike Gesicki can't block. We drafted a blocking tight end. I give him credit for that because he knew that, hey, this guy was limited here, but, hey, everybody else wanted him, so we got to do what we got to do.
I won't say anything, and I'll go along.
I'll go along with it, and I'll make sure I draft another tight end in the block. All right. Listen, that's what happened. Kalen Ballage, decent piece, but wasn't necessarily needed. I don't know if he's going to be a franchise back. I would have rather have another defensive tackle. And Jason Saunders, good kicker, productive rookie season.
Well, Jerome Baker is the third pick.
Yeah, Jerome Baker's. I'm a little bit hot and cold.
I like Jerome Baker.
He makes plays,
He's
but
a
can he
rookie.
stop the run?
He's a
All
rookie.
right, yes, and Raekwon's a rookie, but you know how your
Raekwon's
defense.
Not a rookie.
Yeah, his first play.
Middle linebacker, you're either making tackles or you're not making tackles. There's not a whole lot of learning that goes on
Football
there.
player, you either like physicality or you don't like physicality.
So what's your grade on the rookie picks?
C+.
Okay, I won't disagree. That's I'm with you on that. Okay, Dude Man wants to know, would this team be better served going all in to move up for Dwayne Haskins in the draft or getting a bridge quarterback and be more methodical?
That, I think, is the most important and interesting question of this offseason. And to me, it really comes down to how does Chris Grier, since we know who's involved now, we know who's the decision maker, how does he feel about Dwayne Haskins? How does he feel about Drew Lock? How does he feel about Will Grier? Are those the players that he wants to build his organization around?
And to go on, how does he feel about 2019 when the first three quarterbacks, first three guys in the draft right now will be quarterbacks?
Definitely. To me, I think a bridge quarterback.
2020. I said 2020.
I think a bridge quarterback, if you can't get Dwayne Haskins, which is the guy that I look at and I like the best, and he might go he might go top 5. A team will probably trade to get him at 1.
Well, let's say Arizona. Who's picking second?
Oakland, I believe.
Oakland and the Jets are the top 3 picks. They don't need quarterbacks, unless John Gruden, who knows what he's thinking.
Hey, who knows what the Jets feel about Sam Darnold? You never know in this NFL. But here's the thing: will teams that want a quarterback wait till 2020? And is that the wise approach? Which gets us to Alex Arch's final question. Would you say the best scenario in the draft is to focus on selecting heavy offensive linemen and linebackers and grab a quarterback in 2020?
Well, that's the central issue, and look, we can't sit here. We could pretend like pound the table and get Dwayne Haskins. No, there has to be a big vision plan in this franchise. Where are we going to get our quarterback? And that's why I'm saying, Omar, as much as it hurts, they need to trade somebody and get draft picks to be able to move up and down the draft as they can for a quarterback.
Here is the danger of waiting for the Tui, the Alabama quarterback, or Jake Fromm of Georgia, or Oregon's Justin Herbert. Two of those guys struggled in their final bowl game. And
you got a lot of games on tape. I get what you're saying.
You get a lot of games. But also,
saying.
I remember a year we left the draft and Jake Locker was viewed as the #1 rated quarterback. This year coming to draft, a Buffalo quarterback was viewed as the #1 rated quarterback. And he's off the radar now. You never know how these players are going to play. You never know what kind of injuries there are. So sitting here and saying, oh man, we'll be patient and we'll wait and we'll tank, this isn't like Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was a surefire, can't miss, can't screw that up selection as long as he stayed healthy. There's risk associated with waiting for 2020. But I will say this. I'm all on board. If you're going to fortify your offensive defensive line, great. I think that a 3-4, if you're going to build, if you look at the successful teams, look at the teams that are in the playoffs. They're all 3-4 teams. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to build a 3-4 because
Rams aren't.
Rams run. Yes, Rams run a 3-4. Rams run a 3-4. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to build a 3-4 team, which is what a lot of teams are doing now, you're going to have to get a whole lot of new pieces. And it's going to be a process. And it's going to be, not only, you're going to have to add 2 new defensive ends. Not that you didn't have to already.
Anyway.
You're going to have
but you need to change the strategic idea of the defensive end.
Absolutely. Where's Cam Wake playing in 3-4?
He played 3-4.
Yeah, he's played 3-4, and he's a pass rusher only, so you're going to put him on the field pass rusher only, and I guess Jerome Baker's out there as well.
You got a lot of decision to make, but we agree the central decision, as this question alluded to, is the quarterback, and do they go all in this year? Do they wait till next year? That's why Chris Grier is going to get the big money, and again, why I think they need chips for flexibility.
Trading Xavier Howard? Damn, Dave.
Got to do it, Omar. I hate to do it, but if you're going to rebuild, don't pretend you're rebuilding. All right. Remember last year, Buffalo went into the draft 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3s.
How'd that doesn't pan out for them? Dolphins.
They got what they wanted.
Okay.
They jumped above the Dolphins. There were a lot of people in that Dolphins scouting department who wanted Josh Allen.
You could keep him. Well, that's the final episode of X's and Omars for this season. I'm sure we'll be back once a coach is hired. I believe that whenever that happens. But looking forward to talking to you guys, and hopefully you'll continue to watch sunsentinel.com and read our commentary. Dave, it was a great season.
Fun, Omar.
Fun.
So Omar's always a fun debate, isn't he?
I don't know how to take that.
It's a fun show.
Definitely. Always appreciate it, Dave. Thank you again for watching X's and Omar. See you probably in a couple weeks.